Welcome to God's Table Talk, where real life stories and testimonies of faith are brought to the table. I'm your host, Paul Eck. Right now on God's Table Talk, we're talking with Aurora Castellano, and Aurora is from Pennsylvania. She's a high school student, which a lot of times we don't talk to people that young on this show, but you know what? Everybody has got a testimony. And Aurora, welcome to God's Table Talk.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about your not so long life yet. Talk to us a little bit about your upbringing, your family, and how you got drawn to Jesus at a young age.
So my mom was saved, my dad wasn't, and I technically understood everything and accepted Jesus by 7. My dad is the one who led me to Christ, which is awesome because he wasn't saved. And then I kind of got to see him be saved. I got to see him be baptized, things like that. So I was going through at 12 years old is kind of where I went off the line, and I rededicated myself back to Christ in 2019 because I was on a mission trip, and it was just I just fell in love with Jesus, and it was I just fell in love with serving, and I just knew that there was more to life than to just sit around and mope about the circumstances I was in. And then this lady named Sarah, she has 5 kids and a husband and 2 dogs now. They only had 1 dog at the time, but they kind of took me in, and they were kind of my second family, or they are. And her kids are like my siblings. I just love them so much. And they wound up taking me to this camp in New York, where we just camped for the weekend. It was a Christian camp. We'd be sitting around campfires, cliff jumping, rock climbing, just an awesome time. And I just remember I just wanted more of God, and I was just seeking him more and more. And the more I wanted to seek him, the more I couldn't get enough. And I had my Bible open at 2 a.m. in my tent with my flashlight, just reading, because I was just so I was never in my Bible like that. I was never studying it. And 2019 is when I really understood the concept of a relationship with just how God walked and talked with Adam and Eve. He was in the garden. I want him present in my life. I want him to walk and talk with me,
So talk a little bit about your dad. As you mentioned, when your mom and dad got married, he wasn't a believer. Your mom was, but he wasn't. Talk about how you saw those changes in him as a young child, as he became a believer.
Right. So, the Bible says don't be unequally yoked. So if I was there, I'd be like, come on, what are you guys doing? But it was just, I couldn't really see a difference because I was young and I didn't understand it. But now that I'm older, and he shared with me his testimony, and I've just seen even, trials he's gone through as of just, last year into this year, I'm just seeing how God is working and how God is being faithful to him. And he did grow up Catholic, and we'll probably talk about it later, but long story short, my parents are in a divorce right now, and he's just covered by a lot of shame and guilt, which isn't from God. And because her parents were very strict Christians, but kind of swayed everything, kind of turned everything to what it wasn't, he just feels very guilty, and he held off on it for 5 years because he knew that that's a strict promise and that's a strict covenant. And he wanted to uphold that promise to not only God, but himself and his children. I have a sister who's 20. We're 2.5 years apart. Her name is Madison. And he didn't want to give us a false impression. So, and he's still dealing with that. He's still dealing with the shame and guilt. But as somebody who's in their Bible and who knows strictly who God is, what his character is, that his love is unconditional, which is so powerful, just so powerful in itself. I can fill him with truth, being listen, these are from Satan. These are the fiery darts of Satan. You are loved, God has a plan for you. And something I've personally been holding on for just from the end of last year into this year is hope in a future. Just like Jeremiah 29:11 says, because even though I'm young, I've gone through a lot of things and a lot of trials, but it's awesome to see how everybody changes once you focus. Like, it's just crazy to see the reformation that God gives you once you finally surrender it to him and make him your life.
All right, now I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me an example of some of the something you've gone through that as a teenager that I think a lot of people. I'm so many years away from being a teenager. It's ridiculous. So
Right.
refresh my memory.
Wow, a lot. I mean, there were family circumstances, for 5 years on end. So when I was 12, we'll go way back.
Okay.
When I was 12, my mom, or I grew up seeing my mom have seizures, have medical problems, things like that. So that wasn't new to me. Like, I'd be cheering because I was really into like cheer and soccer and stuff like that. So I was in cheer, and like she just had a seizure at my game. Like, I had to leave my game to come home. Like, just there was always medical issues with her. So I guess she was misusing painkillers for 4 years and nobody knew. And like, she would go as far as flying out to Texas to go have like tests done for medical reasons. So at age 12, I saw my mom overdose in my kitchen. And that was kind of like groundbreaking. I'm 12 years old. I don't know what that is. My sister knew what it was because she was older than me. But I remember just holding like ice on the back of my mom's neck so that she wouldn't fall asleep, meaning she was gonna die. And I just remember my house just being flooded with people, like EMS workers, police, like they were counting bottles and everything. And I didn't understand it. And then I'm just like, oh my gosh, my mom, because growing up, my mom was my best friend. We were very, very close. And I didn't even know how to respond. So I remember just running around my house, grabbing a bag, throwing clothes into it, because I'm very much like a comfort person. Like, I like people being comfortable. I like growing up, when everybody else in the house fell asleep before me, I'd go around and put blankets on them if they weren't covered, just because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want them to be cold. So I'm very just naturally caring, and I want people to be comfortable. So I remember just running around my house, throwing clothes in a bag, getting a bunch of stuff that I thought she would need. And at this point, I thought it was a seizure because, she was shaking, foaming at the mouth, stuff like that. And I remember just praying to God, like, God, please don't let my mom die. Please don't let her die, which I didn't know any better. But so I remember just praying that. And, I saw her get carried out on a stretcher. Like, my neighbors are running up to me and Madison and I'm his sister. And they're just like hugging us. And I'm just like, what's going on? My mom just got carried away. Everybody's coming over. It's like, kind of like I just saw my mom die. And our neighbor kind of took us in under her wing, which was really nice of her. And my mom came home the next night, and we all sat down at the dinner table. Like, everything was just very, like, tensions were high because everybody's just like, what's going on? And my dad went with her to the hospital, and he knew like what wound up happening. Nobody knew she was misusing her medicine whatsoever. But she wound up saying, like, yeah, I overdosed, and then like admitted to us that she was misusing her medicine for years. And she was like, will you forgive me? And I was naive, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like, I'll forgive you, like, everybody makes mistakes. But I didn't realize how bad it was gonna get. And my sister was the only person to be like, no, I'm not forgiving you. She said, you have kids, you have a husband, you have a house, you have a job, you know what you were doing. So she didn't want to forgive her. And then from that point on, every day was just a fight, every single day for years, for 5 years there, even if it was like just the smallest thing. And it was so bizarre. It's one of those things where you wouldn't get it unless you like live through it. And I hope nobody ever does. But she was verbally abusive to me. She's laid her hands on me a couple times, just a way that a mom shouldn't act towards you. And, that was hard because I looked up to her. She was my best friend. We were really close. So, being a teenage girl and just growing up without kind of having that motherly figure, because she became like incompetent to the point where she was just laying on the couch all day. I would take care of her. I got severely bullied at school. Like, people would throw gum in my hair. People took pictures of me when I was in the locker room and spread them around. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't take it. Like, I need to do cyber school. So I started doing cyber school. And because I was doing cyber school and my mom was becoming incompetent, I was taking care of her. So I was making sure she was taking the right meds at the right time, because I was very like paranoid that the same thing would happen again. Because in my mind it was, oh, my mom wants to die. So I genuinely thought for probably 6 months to a year that my mom was suicidal. So I had issues with leaving the house because I didn't want to come home to my mom just dead on the floor. You know what I mean? So because I was taking care of my mom, I was failing school and my grades were horrible, which, you know, it is what it is. And like my teachers, I didn't want to tell them because I didn't want it to seem like an excuse. So I kind of just toughed it up and I was like, okay, well, then you're going to have to stay up all night and you're going to have to, you know, like work your butt off getting good grades so I could pass. And it just came to like, she just got so violent that I felt unsafe. So like my dad went to work at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I would stay up till 7 a.m. because I was genuinely scared like my mom was going to do like something to somebody while they were sleeping. So I naturally was in that survival instinct of you need to stay up, you need to keep watch, which isn't my job. And like looking back now, I understand that. But and it's even crazy now to even just be in the space that I am now, because it's like in that moment, I did not think like I was going to get through it. There were so many nights where I would just cry. And like I didn't understand it because I was like, I'm such a young kid. She's supposed to be my mom. Like what's going on? Where did everything go wrong? And why is it going wrong? And I remember just, you know, I was patient with God because I was like, you know what, maybe she's just having a bad day. But then it became every day, every day, every day. And then it just progressively got worse to the point where I was her mother. And I remember one day just coming up to my room and just cursing at God because I was so like, this is 3 years down the line. And I'm like, this turned from a bad day into a bad like life, into a bad 3 years. And I was like so mad at God. And I said, like, what is the reasoning for this? What's going on? Because I knew there was a reason behind it, but I didn't understand it. So just, and because of the way my mom was treating me, I became just a nasty, mean person because, you know, I constantly had someone screaming at me, constantly had someone like telling me I'm not just belittling me. So I started to believe that and I started becoming a mean person. And then I started becoming friends with mean people. And I never personally got into drugs or alcohol or like became promiscuous or anything like that. But I had friends like that. And, you know, when you have friends like that, it was just this whole big thing. So
Yeah, that's a lot for a child to have to take on. Was there anger towards God because your mom was saved and you're thinking, God, this is one of your children. Why is she like this? And did you ever get an answer from God as to why you had to go through this at such a young age?
mhm. um so there's just this one time that I can remember right now is when we were sitting across the table from each other. We got into a fight. I don't even know what it was because my memory's like wiped, which I'm thankful for. But I remember her telling me that I was going to burn in hell and something like that. And like, I'm a Christian, so you can't pull that card on me. So I was like bouncing Bible verses back at her. And I was like, this is not. So I was kind of just like you said, like you're a Christian, you know better than anybody else that that's not true. So I'm still kind of dealing with her, and there's still some things that I'm being settled, like that are being settled through like law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still trying to heal from these things, and I'm still trying to understand why, but I'm kind of content with it because I know that God doesn't put us through these things for no reason, and He knows how much we can handle. And, you know, like you really understand how much you can handle because there were days where I was just like, you know, like, God, I can't do this. Are you sure like I'm cut out for this? Like, are you sure you wanted to pick me? But God doesn't make mistakes. And like one story that I really liked was Moses, when God gave him like the power to split the Red Sea and everything. And an analogy I always like to use is that God didn't, the Israelites were probably freaking out, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to walk across this water. We can't do that. We're all gonna drown. And then he created a way through it. But they still had to go through it. God will always create a way through your problems. And I think because I'm so young, that there's a lot of other teenagers in my spot, which I didn't even notice until I started, picking up not bad people. They just had bad circumstances. And that's the danger of becoming friends with people that have the same trauma as you, because then you form a trauma bond and then you're like, oh, you're like me. And then you just never get out of that cycle. Some people will only know you for your trauma. And that's something that is really hard for me, because I've had to leave a lot of friendships after I rededicated my life to Christ, because I was like, okay, well, I've tried sharing the gospel with them, but I can't save them. So I kind of had to let it go. But I'm still on that journey of finding out what the purpose was for going through certain things. But, it boils down to trust. Like back to Jeremiah 29:11, hope in a future. That's all, like, that's just through my mind 24 hours a day. Hope in a future, hope in a future, hope in a future. And yeah.
How did your friends, your trauma friends, what was their reaction when you went back, when you rededicated your life?
So, and it's like, it's kind of, I feel sad in a way, because they were probably so confused, because when they were around me, I was cursing up a storm. I wasn't doing things they were. I still had boundaries for myself, and I still had respect for myself, and I still knew I had God in me. I was just very angry. So there's this one girl I was friends with, and I wound up just like not being friends with her last year, like the end of 2020. And I've always heard stories about people like denying God and going against him and not wanting anything to do with him. But I never saw it shattered my heart. I've never seen someone openly deny Jesus like I did when I was telling my friend. And I wound up saying to her, like, like, I'm really concerned about what you're doing. Because she did drugs, she would party guy after guy, and it was like, I was just like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to do this, and I know, like it says in the Bible, like, you shouldn't be friends with fools, and like, watch what you're doing, wise walk with wise, and things like that. And my eyes were open, and I was like, okay, so I can either plant a seed in her and try to help her grow in her faith and present the gospel in her. Or if that doesn't work, I need to take myself out of this situation, because then if I don't, I'm going to stumble with her. And I don't want to be a stumbling block to somebody else. And I don't want to stumble over somebody else. So we had multiple conversations, and at the time, I was scared of being a pushover, because I wasn't as bold in my faith, but now I'm bold in my faith. And now I don't care whose toes I step on, because I care about your soul. And I said that to her, like in 2020, and we've been friends since 2018. So, when she met me, it was kind of just like, oh, we're kind of the same, her mom is mean to her. So we kind of bonded off of that. And then, like, she kind of took me in too. And so I said to her, like, I care about you. And I said, if you died tonight, I don't know where you would be, which I knew where she would be. I just didn't want to, bluntly say that. But she was like, Aurora, I understand that's your relationship or your religion or whatever you call it. But she was like, that's not me. I'm 18. I want to have fun and stuff like that. And I was kind of just taken back by that, because like, it's not worth it. Like, it is not worth it. Hell is hot. Like, we're not meant to be in hell. God doesn't send us there. We send ourselves. And I think when you're a Christian and you know the severity of hell, that's when you really are starting to be open with your faith, and you're being like, okay, like, I need to tell everybody about this. Like, it's kind of like when something new comes out and everybody's like hyped up about it and they want to tell all their friends. Well, if you know, like, the best life-changing news of your life, how much do you have to hate a person to not tell them? Like, how much? So so to see her deny God, and I went to her several times. It wasn't just a one and done thing. I went to her several times and she was just not having it. And then there was actually a huge trial I went through in my life towards the end of 2020, and she was just nowhere to be seen. And then I remember we had a FaceTime call one night, and I said to her, I was like, I'm at the lowest point of my life. And I was like, and I'm understanding things slowly. And I was like, I'm very, very, very concerned for you. And she didn't care. She wanted to party and have fun. And I didn't want that lifestyle. And actually just last night, I was just sitting there and I was like, I really miss her because, you miss friends. Like she's not a bad person. I don't really have anything bad to say about her. She has a kind soul. She's a kind person, but she's just in with the wrong crowd and has her eyes on the wrong things. So
as do millions other, and they always do. But yeah, it's tough. I'm kind of interested to know when you were in that anger stage, what was it? When was it that God touched your heart and you said, I've got to rededicate my life? Was there a specific thing that happened and you said, okay, it's all God or I'm doomed?
Mm-hmm. 2019, like I said, that was just the year where my eyes were really just open. And it started with the missions trip because we were all getting together. So think about this. I was up till 7 a.m. every single morning. I was taking care of my mom. I was doing schoolwork. I was very stressed over so many things in my life. And I was getting on a schedule. I was waking up at 8 a.m. for a week straight, showering, doing my hair, getting dressed and everything. We show up to the church. We all make breakfast together. We sit down, we pray, we eat breakfast together, we clean up together, we do a devotional. Then we talk about like what the plan is for the day, what our motives are, like what our intentions are. And then we go and we do our thing and we serve like to people. And then we come back and we talked about what we learned. And when I started to learn fellowship, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like a family. I love it. So I really was just like there's so much more to life than just than what my mom was telling me, than staying up till 7 a.m. and then sleeping till 2 p.m. Like there's so more and like so much more. And I think that was the first time in years where I just really felt like I was living. And I was supposed to go on a missions trip. The year prior to that, we were supposed to go to Texas to help with the hurricane relief. And I didn't have the money to do it. And I didn't have enough time to raise it. So I was really bummed about that. So when I heard the news about this missions trip, I was like, oh my gosh, like God, please. So I was praying to God. And at the same time, I felt unworthy to pray to God because I was like, okay, I'm not walking with God. I wasn't pursuing him. I wasn't getting into my Bible. I had horrible friends around me that couldn't hold me accountable. And I was just like, I need to do this. So I would pray every single day, God, if it's in your will, please let me serve on this missions trip. Like I just knew I needed it. So I wound up going and I was just hearing everybody's testimonies. And this one testimony that stood out to me, she's an older lady from our church. And we went to her house the second day and she couldn't get up and down her stairs. So the teens would go up and down, we would clean things up and everything. And she just opened her house and she was like, whatever you want, take it. That's literally what she said. She said, down to her carpet. If you like her carpet, roll that up and take that with you because what's hers is ours, I guess. And I was blown away by that because once again, I was in that survival instinct where it was just like, okay, this stuff is mine. This is theirs, So I was very protective over my things. And I was just like, wow. And then she was just talking about her testimony and the trials she's gone through. And I was just like, this is oddly lining up to me. And I was like, this is crazy. So I really did learn a lot from that lady. And just as of recently, a few months ago, we're planning to move soon. So I was packing up my room and my friend was here and she was like, oh, I really like this. I was like, take it. You can have it. I said, anything in this room that you want, take it. And the main reason behind that is because this is not our home. Like this materialistic stuff means nothing. These four walls mean nothing. Like, don't get comfortable. Like, this is not our home. If we're living for eternity, we should be living out of a suitcase, always just on the go. Like I don't know. So just hearing her and the things she's gone through and how she overcame her trials, like she was literally on her deathbed. And just the joy of the Lord she has and the hope she had and the trust. Like trust is so much more than just, okay, you got it. No, it's an everyday practice that you need to just be like, okay, God, like this is yours. I surrender it. Like I'm waving my white flag. So
Yeah, a lot of times it's amazing. Like you were saying, you were, giving scripture to this young lady that was a friend of yours and stuff, and it wasn't having an impact. A lot of times it's our testimony that has such a larger impact on people's lives. And a lot of times it's the simple things that really turn somebody's life around, even though we look at it and go, really, that was it? I mean, so let's talk about your future. You're a senior in high school. Obviously, you're still having to deal with real world teenager things. How do you approach those things as a teenager, but more importantly, as a Christian? What do you do to handle those things?
so oh my gosh, I'm still trying to figure that out every day. But I try my best when I am going through something, or even just when I'm not, when it's just everyday things. Okay, my human flesh, how do I want to look at this? And I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to yell at this person, I kind of want to give it to them. But then it's just like, okay, Aurora, you have to think biblically. You have to think about what a Christian means, like what that means. Like that means Christian means many Christ. And to be a many Christ, you're a disciple. So, something I've really just been digging in and trying to learn is the fruit of the Spirit. And the one I'm particularly working on is joy. And that's really hard because joy doesn't mean you're always happy, but joy means even though I'm going through this, I'm still going to choose to be happy about my circumstances. How the Bible says, be thankful for your trials. I'm very thankful for my trials. And it's so weird and I'm trying to get in the habit of this, to just stop and be like, you know what, God, thank you for this trial. 2 nights ago, I was having, like, the whole day was just a horrible day for me. I was in a horrible mood, and I get home, my phone is on 5%, and I plug my phone in and my charger just snaps. And I was just like, okay, Aurora, like being a human, you kind of want to freak out a little bit because that was just my final straw. But then I sat there and I prayed and I was like, you know what? God, thank you for this trial, and I couldn't get a phone charger because everywhere was closed because it was so late at night. So with my 5% battery, I turned on my flashlight and I opened my Bible and I did the little, oh God, whatever page I open up to is what you want me to read. And I smack it open to Ruth. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's only 2 pages in this. So I wound up reading my Bible and then getting a charger. So it's just like, I don't know, always just be obedient to Christ. If that's anything I could tell somebody, always be obedient. And when you make the right decision, you're not always going to be happy at first. Like, I'm still learning how to get over the fact that I had to cut off some friends because they were living for the world. And I know the dangers of being lukewarm, and I know the dangers of serving 2 masters, and I don't want to do that. So I think what's gotten me through most of my trials is confiding in somebody and having an accountability person that you can trust that is a Christian, which is Sarah for me. Her whole family, they're awesome. I love them. They'll probably be watching this when it goes up. But she really helped me through a lot because, and that's the importance of having friends that are on the same wavelength as you, because they can kind of pull you back when you're slipping and be like, okay, this is the truth. This is, it's one of those things where I'd rather offend you to heaven than comfort you to hell. And that's how I expect people to be towards me. So accountability really helped me, and getting involved in my church. I was on the praise team. I was sewing blankets for the homeless. I was just, any opportunity I had to help in my church, I would do it. So being active in my church made me, really, really think of, even when I'm home, like everything we do it to the glory of God. And it seems so just cliche, but it's a lot deeper than that, because God is going to honor that and he's going to bless you for that. So that helped, and prayer is a big part of it. I still struggle with it sometimes. I don't pray as nearly as much as I should, but I try to. And getting into your Bible, because now that I'm in my Bible, I'm just like, okay, it's time to open my Bible. Like, I just love getting into my Bible. But future wise, I don't know. I'm still, I'm still trying to hold on to that hope of God. Like 2 months ago, I was literally crying in my room, not knowing how I was going to go on, not knowing how I was going to deal with anything. Because just even now I'm going through a trial. I just lost one of my high school friends. She passed away. And then in November, this guy I dated, we once again had that trauma bond because his mom treated him terribly. He went into the army and then came home and committed suicide in November. So that was really, really hard because first of all, he was my first boyfriend. Second of all, I had to leave that relationship for several reasons, but one of them is because he wasn't pursuing Christ. And I knew how dangerous it was for an unbeliever and a believer who's acting like an unbeliever to be together. It's just not going to work. So, and he wasn't a Christian. So my eyes were really open from that. And that's something that I still struggle with a lot. I'm still trying to cope with it. Grieving is very up, down, up, down, up, down. You're never just a straight line. And it's just like life. You're never a straight line. It's always up, down, up, down. So, and the same thing with my other friend who just passed last month. She wasn't a Christian. And I know where these people are. Like, I know what's going on. Like, I'm not oblivious. I don't try to sugarcoat anything. We're called to be the salt of the earth. We're not supposed to be sugar and, be gentle with what you're saying. But Jesus was unapologetically bold about his faith and about God and about, the miracles he did. And he was out there and he calls it how it is. If Jesus was walking this earth right now, a lot of people would be hurt because he called people out. And so
a lot of those people that be hurt are sitting in churches on Sunday morning.
Exactly. Because think of John the Baptist. If John the Baptist preached how some of these pastors are preaching, he would have never been beheaded. Absolutely not. Never. And once again, that's when you have to know, like, okay, God, please give me wisdom and discernment of who I'm listening to. Is it biblical? Are they stepping out and being bold in their faith? Because what happens when the tribulation comes and there's, those pastors that said they were saved, but they're not, and they're still going to have to lead people to Christ because they kind of know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What happens now when COVID comes around and everybody's kind of scared to open their churches and scared, there's people that are seeking truth that need it right now. There's people that are at their wits' end that need the light of God, and you're scared of a fine. Which I understand, if you're not financially stable and you can't take a fine, I get it, but God will provide. And like I said, he's going to bless you and honor you because you're obeying him.
Yes.
Jesus did not stop. He did not stop. He was going on boats across water to tell people he would do anything he could because he knows the severity of hell and he knows God's love. And so, me losing those two people, very close to me, very extremely close to me, that, passed away, that are not Christians, are not saved. I know they're not rejoicing in heaven with God. And that breaks my heart. But that makes me open my eyes. And that makes me say, okay, every interaction I have with somebody, they should see Jesus through me. I saw this quote where it's just like, people who meet you should meet Jesus. And I'm always going to fall short. I'm not perfect, but I'm going to strive to get to that point where, God is like, how many people did you tell about me? Why did you hesitate to tell this person? I don't want to be like that. I don't care what people say about me. I'm not scared of any retaliation I get. I don't care because I know that God's going to honor me and bless me for that.
I have a friend here that I go to church with that quite often says we have to be a fool for God. Not meaning we do foolish things, but that God sometimes is going to ask us to do things that we think humanly are foolish, but in actuality have a purpose for it. Because if God's asking you to do it, obviously there is a purpose behind it. He doesn't have you do something just to test you or to see how you're going to respond. everything he asks you to do is for a purpose, kind of like me doing this podcast. So do you see, does God given you a vision of where he wants you to go? I know you said earlier, if you're a Christian, basically you should be living out of your suitcase, God, if you're going to send me here, I'm going to go here. And,
Right.
is that what you're seeing? Or has he given you like a vision? Are you going to be a teacher, a preacher? Are you going to do mission work? What do you think is going to happen?
So after my missions trip, I was I've only gone on one missions trip and I already love it. And that was 2 years ago. But after my missions trip, I was just like, I'm so dead set. Like God is calling me to be a missionary, which, looking back now, I don't know if that's so sure of his plan for me. I am interested in serving. I'm kind of nervous that he will call me to be a full-time missionary. I'm not going to lie. But once again, it's one of those things where I just have to put God above me and what I want. And I know ultimately, like, why would I pick a career rather than God's plan for me? Because that is so temporary, the career. But, living for God is, you're not going to die when you live for God. Your soul just doesn't. So I think I'm very interested in cinematography. I love recording. Like, I'm that one person in the friend group that's like, oh yeah, like go do that dumb thing. I'll record, And like, I love editing. I love just capturing everything. I have a bunch of cameras in my room. I don't even have, I edit all on my phone, and I just really have a passion for it. It's something I could do all day. So I want to go to school for that, but I'm going to hold off on it because I've prayed about it for a while, but I still haven't gotten a clear answer. And I think what I'm going to do when I graduate is go to that college in New York, Word of Life, the Bible Institute, and learn the Bible for a year. You could pick to go 2 years, but we'll see what's happening. I'm going up to visit the campus in May. So, God works in mysterious ways, but at the same time, he's very clear with what he wants. And so it mostly boils down to what he wants. So as of right now, I'm just trying to get through high school.
And you graduate, what, in a couple months, do you not?
I do. Yeah. June 9th.
So as you look, is it possible that God allowed you to be surrounded by these trauma people because in his perfect plan down the road, they're going to hit what is known as rock bottom? And you're the person they're going to turn to, or if not turn to you, they're going to turn to somebody like you because of the seeds you planted.
Well, even now, even just after, the guy that I dated when he passed, I actually met this guy and he was in the Navy, which is so weird because military, but different branches. And he told me he tried taking his life. And I was just like, listen, I'm so glad you're here. And I was like, let me talk to you about it. And then I wound up sharing the gospel with him and sharing part of my testimony. And I said to him, I was just saying 2 nights ago, God, what was my purpose for specifically meeting and dating Justice and then him passing? What are the odds that his name was Justice? Are you kidding me? But I said to him, I said to God, I was just what was, I will let it all go. I will surrender it all to you. Which really I shouldn't be making a deal with God, but I was just I need to know my purpose for meeting this guy. And 9 months later, he does this. It was just bizarre. The whole thing was just weird to me. And 2 nights later, I meet this guy who was in the Navy who tried taking his life. Same exact circumstances, same exact way and everything like that. And I was just boom. And it was on Facebook. It was a Facebook status. And I read it and I was like, I need to message this guy. So I texted him and I'm like, hey, I'm going to share the gospel with you now. So I said to him, I prayed for this. I said, I prayed for God to reveal to me what my purpose was for this specific reason. So I think for every trial you go through, God has a specific reason tied to that trauma. So right now I can pick myself up when I know it's time to get up. So, I gave myself a couple days to really just cry and grieve through certain things. But I know when to stand up and be like, this is not me. This is not my identity. This is not who God says I am. Wallowing and putting myself in a pity party isn't going to do anything. Absolutely not. So I started getting into the mindset of looking around and saying, okay, I have a beautiful house. I have a family that loves me. I have a dog. I have people that love me. And still I have those days where I'm just like, I don't know, Aurora. I don't know. This seems a little too hard, but you can't, like, that's like telling God that he can't do anything, that he's impossible. And I was ashamed for a while to talk about anything that I've gone through. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. But I saw God working, and I was just like, I need to be open about this. So I don't feel like there's one particular like purpose for me going through everything. But if I had to pin it on one, it would be to just show the mercy of God, like just the grace of God, because there's never been a time where I called on God and he didn't answer me. And he kind of knocked me off my feet to where I had to trust him, where everybody around me I couldn't trust. I couldn't, because I wasn't ready. But at the same time, there were people in my life that were only with me to hurt me and to betray me. So now that I'm with God, I'm just like, okay, like I have my blinders on. It's all just God. Like I'm looking at him. I want nothing to do with anything of this world. Like I'm so just totally focused on God. And I think, little things like that, like, did I wish I never had to go through something like that and losing someone in that way? Absolutely. But because I'm going through that, I can understand people more and I can relate to people more and I could be a light. And I love helping people. I love talking to people. And it's crazy because I see God working in like all my friends' lives through me. So he's using me to talk to all my friends, because a lot of my friends are saved, but they're not really walking like a Christian. And that's hard to call out as a Christian because obviously I'm not perfect. And then they bring up the Bible verse of like, why would you call out a sawdust in your brother's eye or something along the lines?
Mm-hmm.
And
you
it's
have a
just
plank in
like,
your own eye, yes.
Yeah, that's what it was. So it's just a continuous work in progress. And I believe that our lives are a testimony. I feel like you have that one turning point where it's like, okay, this is where I was before I met God. This is what he did, and this is how he transformed my life. And then I think from that point on, we should be striving to be more like God every single day because we're made new. There's no reason to like, why should I hold the burden of trauma, of depression, of anxiety? Why should I hold all of that when God already defeated it? When God poured his wrath on Jesus on the cross so that I don't have to carry those things. That's ultimately just what I want to tell people, because like, if you just knew the love of God, it just knocks you off your feet. Like when you truly feel love, because we don't know what perfect love is because we don't have it, because we're sinners. But when God just fills the Holy Spirit up in you, man, like there's been so many times where I've just sat and just cried and I'm just like, thank you, God, just for everything. And it's honestly amazing. And sometimes I can't even wrap my head around it. Like, why would God love me? Like, why did he create us? Why does he love us so much? But I'm understanding that, like, that's why we sing God saved a wretch like me. Like, we're all horrible, dirty people that need a savior. And God realized that, and he was gracious to us. So, like, it's a free gift. So, like, take it.
For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11.
Thank you for tuning in to God's Table Talk. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Anchor, and you can watch the full interview on YouTube. I'm your host, Paul Eck. Be blessed, but more importantly, be a blessing.